Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream where I'm going to be going over some new stuff in Blender 5.1 and just making a little project that I want to make on the side. So first thing that we can see right here is that I have a grid that is doing a volume simulation, but it only has one dimension using the new cube grid topology node. Oh, also, before I get too ahead of myself, I forgot to check when the Blender 5.1 beta happens, so that's when new features are frozen and they just work on bug fixing until it actually comes out. So this upcoming Thursday, there will be no new features, which lists will not be in Blender 5.1. I thought we had more time to work on that kind of stuff before it came out. I have some notes that I want to make for that. But yeah, there is not enough time, and I did not know. I should have checked that weeks ago. But yes, beyond that, there are some very cool nodes coming in Blender 5.1, one of them being the cube grid topology node, where we can just set the resolutions, and it just gives us a base grid that just a boolean, which I believe is set to true by default, which just gives a framework for other grids. So in this case, I set the cube grid topology, I set the transform so that all the squares are even, because the advect velocity node needs it, which I forget if I even used that further down the line. And then I multiply it by 0, and then I add to one of the smoke grids, because grids are their own, they don't need to be attached to geometry until you want to set a material. So this is just being passed along, and then I do the actual simulation, which I'll give a brief breakdown. This is from Sean Trelly, I believe the name is, though I could be pronouncing that very wrong. I add to the velocity every simulation step. I advect the velocity using this setup so that it'll wrap around borders, as we can see, giving that infinite simulation look. And yeah, that's the advect setup, multiplying this by 0 on the Z because we don't want it moving outside of the thing. The divergence, in this case, I'm using grid divergence, but you need to multiply it by like the amount of voxels, but I don't know how to do that exactly, so I just set it to how it feels, what feels right. You could do it either by sampling the grid floats. In this case, you know, you get the voxel index, add to it, and yada yada. So you could do it either this way, but this way is faster by, I think, a few milliseconds. For the pressure, which happens next, as far as I need to find if there's a official way of doing this, but for now I'm just using the up, down, left, right, you know, add all those together, subtract from that, divide by 4, and then you iterate on that. That is the most expensive part of this entire operation, which is 4 iterations, 12 milliseconds. I should mention, this is just a 256 by 1 grid, and it is still, it's slow. It's slow. Maybe it would be faster to do it on just a regular mesh, but since this is more generic, you could just add in a third dimension and it should be pretty much fine. Yeah. And then you subtract the pressure from the velocity grid, which looks like this. Again, you need to divide it by some sort of voxel count, which I'm still not entirely sure. This one is faster compared to this, which you would need to connect that for the third dimension, yada yada, but you get it. Let me actually go and organize this a little bit better. Let me move that down over to here. But yeah, this is only using grids because if you were to store the grids, it would be less efficient. And then here, which this setup is just another advect, except advecting smoke. This is terribly organized. Let's move some of the things around, make it just a little easier to see. I don't know why I'm multiplying it by 1 after the fact. It was probably useful for something. Oh, it was for dissipation. We don't need that at the moment. So that's the setup for that. So that's how the grid is set up. You only need to output the actual smoke, the pressure, and the velocity out there. I forget if you actually need the pressure, or if that's calculated on the fly. The pressure... Yeah, Do we even need the pressure as the input? Maybe. Maybe I could eliminate... we'll just see about that. But we might not even have to store that. But yeah, with that, we can see that the simulation is running quite well. If we look at just the grid, like this, we can see it looks like that. You know, pretty standard. This part is real time until you try to voxelize it. I set the grid background to be -1 so that the volume to mesh doesn't flip back and forth. As we can see, it looks pretty good. And then I can volume it, shade smooth, set material, and all that good stuff. So either way, if you want to mesh it or just keep it as volume, both of those are valid ways of doing it. So let me connect the volume right here, and we can see that that is working. And we can see it looks very orange because of the lights. Yep. So 2D simulations, 2D volume simulations, which apparently that is pretty popular in Houdini because they use that for like height maps and stuff like that. Options are there. I want to try out more things like temperature and stuff like that, but smoke simulations are still quite heavy, and I do not have a super powerful CPU, so I probably won't be dealing too much with that, but it is very cool. I have a vision, though, if we could use the compositor for stuff like that. That would be very cool. Yes. For the moment, it looks pretty cool. In terms of other stuff that is coming in Blender 5.1, let me go and get the changelog so that you all can see. Firefox stack. It's just going to show you all the geometry node changelog stuff, and maybe a few other things. Browser. Ah, there we go. Okay, so for Blender 5.1, mixed color node does that. Yep, Pack UV Islands now has... Let me just zoom in so you can see it a bit better. Let's see, inputs to define a custom packing region. You can search for warnings. UV Unwrap has a slim unwrap option and no flip. Bone info supports reading bone transforms. This will be useful when we get lists. So at the moment, you can get one bone or a couple if you store all the names of a bone as strings in an index switch. Inconvenient, that'll probably be much more relevant in 5.2. If I get the the geometry attribute node in, which shouldn't be too difficult, but I'm just gonna wait until 5.2 is actually going. There we go. The string to curves has input sockets. I'm hoping to get the word ID in for that, which will be good. There's a new font socket, get bundle item, store bundle item. I'm just making a little note for this. I need to fix the bundle signatures in here, which is actually a bit of a pain because I basically have to remake the nodes just to work on like because the signature just stores, it's only on the UI level. I thought when I first made these notes, I thought it would automatically get what's in the bundle, but it doesn't, and it's a little quirky with all that. New matrix SDV node for singular value decomposition for 3x3 matrices. This is very useful for stuff like the rigid body simulation setup for inertia tensors, which I need to try using that with that, but there's still the collision points issue, but maybe I'm smart enough to deal with that this time around, even if it's for just one collision, not even tons of them. New cube grid topology, which we went over, new grid dilate and erode node. This one, it seems like a specific OpenVDB thing where it changes the active voxels and like it expands the bounds. I'm still not all too sure. The set grid background node has a new option to update the inactive voxel values too. New grid mean and grid median nodes. We'll need to take a look at that. So that's good. That's all for geometry nodes, which is amazing. For the compositor, the Mask2 SDF node, I'm very happy about that. That'll be very useful for quite a few setups. Again, I have a vision of being able to have little compositor nodes in like the shader and geometry node editors because they can work on the CPU. So it'll probably replace the old the old and unused texture editor. But that there has been no word on that. That is just a vision I have in my brain. I'm not smart enough to even try to implement that, but it would be cool. Index switch is now supported. Sequencer strip info has been added. I don't believe this is GPU supported yet, but they plan for that in 2026, I believe. There's a whole lot of other changes in there. I think, let's see. I think there's an option that's coming around where you can disable the default Uh, file output, which is very useful if you've ever tried to use the file output node. It tries to output a duplicate, which is annoying when you try to render stuff. I've had to do that in the past. But yeah, there's all that. Let's see, what's up with where's the shading? Well, let's just go to cycles and see. Okay. Yep, that seems pretty good. EV and viewport. I'm not expecting planar reflections. Now support glossy reflections and refraction. Ah, okay, that makes sense. Yep. AOVs have been bumped to 128. That's good. Transparency evaluation for shader to RGB. People have been wanting that for a long time because they had that in EV Legacy. And if they are porting some of those options, HDRI, light path node. I did back support for the light path node inside the world node tree. Oh, another thing from EV Legacy coming back. It's good to see that. Let's see, overlay to, oh, the overlay, the performance overlay. That is pretty cool. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's actually take a look at the pull request. So you can see the evaluation, synchronization, and total times, which, let's see, I forget which one does which. I think evaluation is like the CPU side, the synchronization is like the GPU side, but I could be very wrong. But this will be very useful when debugging stuff. So you can see the performance right there, and that will be very, very good. Thank you very much to Polk David for that. That will be extremely useful when debugging why EV Next is slowing down. Does that work for cycles too, or I assume that's only EV? Okay, EV materials are compiled by oh wait, no, this is, yeah, it's for the overlay. Yeah, no. So maybe it works for both. I'll need to look into that. Even materials are compiled faster by pre-compiling GPU pipelines. At the same time, GPU shaders compile faster on all platforms due to pre-processing the shader sources. So we can see that it goes down. Oh yeah, no, that's actually, it's a little more expensive when it's warm versus cold. Then on Vulkan, it's, yeah, just a little more expensive there, but it is much better when it's pre-compiled. That's good. That's very good. Grease pencil, let's just go through all of them before I do my little shader project I want to try. Let's see, move to layer. There we go. Make parent. Okay, all that seems to be good. Going over this very fast. Snapping, curves, and then the Boolean exact solver can be significantly faster with many attributes. With the manifold, oh, that's cool. Support for that, vertex slide, polygons, okay. Anything else? Let's check the Python API, even though I never use it. Let's see. I do use it sometimes, but not often. Okay, that's fine. And then, oh, whoops, I meant to click core. And then we'll take a look at assets. Yep, undo, Windows, animation and rigging. Let's see what happened there. Let's see. Core, actions and shape keys evaluate a lot faster. That's good. Go, and then a ton of stuff like that. Gaussian smoothing. Ooh, let's take a look at that. Oh, so it's a modifier. That is very cool to see. Indestructible. That is very good. Wow. The UI, colored. Ah, nice. And then let's see. Show subframes is enabled. Oh, okay. Let's see. All right, that's good. And then assets. Let's see. Individual libraries can be disabled in the preferences, catalogs, and that's because it would. Someone mentioned that, but I forgot what that did. Asset shelf. Yep, all that is good. Okay. So that's a brief overview of everything in 5.1. Let's check the chat again. Are hair dynamics coming in 5.1? No, they're not. It's taking a while. Let's see. Would it be possible to simulate fluids with surface tension in grids, or would you need particles for that? I honestly don't know. I just don't know, unfortunately. I would assume that it would probably be possible. Maybe not in Blender because if it were possible, it would not be fast at all. But yeah. But with the little bit of stuff we have, it is quite cool. Oh, before, if you're wondering about, like, oh, two-dimensional volumes, the volume cube node. The limit for the resolution was set to 2, and now with this, we can set it to 1. I assume that's just a technical limitation. If you try doing that, it's like, no, the resolution must be greater than 1. But now they don't have to be greater than 1. I could make this a 1 by 256 thing. Oh, but of course it doesn't actually show. Yep. Should see something here, at the very least. Let's try 64. Hello? There we go, okay. So it's, yeah. Relative or original? It sets to original. So here we should see at least something appearing, right? Let's set that to be 32. There should be, again, something. There isn't. So many voxels. I actually don't know why that's not working. Let's Control Z until we get that back. Maybe it's just the distance is 128. So that works. Yeah, maybe it's just not doing that all too well. Here we go, we can see all that, and then that happens, which is cool. 256, I tried 512 by 512, but it is slow as heck. Yeah, oh, and I need to adjust the voxel division for some of the parts, so that does not turn into that. But yes. It's cool. We're getting simulation capabilities. Let's see. I went to report a bug related to the bundle and you already had it reported. I did not report a bug, but I made a PR about it because I was like, oh shoot, I did. Unfortunately, when I made the nodes, I did not check to see if the bundle signature was something that was automatically created. And they merged the node before that was put in, which means that on one hand, it 100% has to be fixed, and it doesn't seem too difficult to implement. I just need to look through and see what functions are automatically available, and if there are any functions that need to be specifically created, which I am not exactly looking forward to. It's possible, I just need to actually do it. Okay. What are the specific use cases you have in mind for lists? I'll be using it for complex sorting functions. I have a few. I'm glad you asked. Let's go and get my PRs up. So, I'm just gonna get the PRs. So, let's see. Name list and collection children. So, with this one, I'm just pulling up both of them on my browser. And the data block name, we could actually take a look at that live today. I'm just postponing the actual project I want to do today. And also I'm gonna get the curve to node word ID out, curve to string. There we go. So boop boop boop. Welcome to another day of news in Blender. Okay, so let's look at this. So the first one, this one will probably make it in 5.1. It's basically just string to curves with a word ID outputs, which is pretty simple. It wasn't too difficult to implement. This was discussed in a module meeting, so I should check a few things. Added 31 lines of code. I didn't think it... Oh, right now I forgot. Yeah. Takes a little bit, but it's not too bad. It's mainly just copying what is already existing in there. But let's take a look at the lists. So the two nodes I have in mind for that use lists are the collection children node, which was inspired by one of Jacques Luc's branches, where he added an input to the collection info node, which had something like this. And I was like, oh, let me make a node that has that in the was it the objects or just the collections? Well, anyway, this one has both, where you can just get all that. Now, I did not make a build that has this at the moment, so I can't go and show this live, but you would just input a collection and it would output all of the objects in that collection and all of these sub-collections, and you can press recursive, so it'll look through all of the sub-collections. So it's great, very, very useful when dealing with giant, I guess, guess, pipeline kind of stuff, where you just have a collection and then all of the necessary parts in that collection. So it's very, very useful. I wonder if there's going to be a list sort node, because that would be very good. I need to look into that. That wouldn't be difficult, I don't think. Yeah, that wouldn't be too difficult. Assuming that it's string based. Yeah, I'll need to think about that. But speaking of string lists, the attribute name list node. So at the moment, the current approach to get all the attributes is just to do it manually, which I did that. I just X out of Firefox. Yes, I am a genius. So next button, I was like, oh, I need to go and get that. Sorry, 1 second, everyone. I'm a genius when it comes to browsers. Nope, that is the wrong tab. I'm gonna get back up. But ask all your questions now while I am looking through things. Here we go. And we are back. There we go, attribute name list, where before you would have to go and get just basically put them in manually, which is inconvenient and slow and not very pipelineable. But the proposed solution is to get the attribute name lists from there and output them there. Now, during a module meeting, the devs were not entirely sure what would be the best way to adapt this to use strings in the most effective manner. The couple of options that were proposed were to output like the name, and then it was another piece of data, and then the actual attributes as a bundle list, which seems like the most likely solution. So you would need attribute list and then separate bundle, or get bundle item and then separate bundle, which is a bit inconvenient. Or maybe all the lists could just be output there, but then you would need several get list item nodes, which is also a little inconvenient. But the current method that I have here is just you get the names, get list item, do that. You can get the first UV map or a armature deform setup. Though it is much slower than the default, I'm assuming just because of geometry nodes overhead, which seems to be fairly significant. But yeah. And actually storing the attributes with stored named attribute nodes, you probably can't see it all too well, and it's not letting me zoom in anymore. Storing them with stored named attribute nodes is faster than just putting them through a repeat zone without the geometry, which is weird. But, oh well. And then with all that, yeah, that's everything there. Someone put a frowny face on there. And then, yeah, there's just a lot of options there. I'm also thinking about putting in the last thing I did was put in a Boolean input for filtering or not filtering, but I have not figured out how to make it hide the menus in there, which I know is possible. But yeah, that is the stuff. There will be a list sort node. I've seen it in an included PR. That's good. That is good. Sorting the list and then like filtering lists, that will be very, very useful. But yeah, that is that. Those are my plans, and it will be good. It's just those will not be in 5.1. Those will be in 5.2 because lists will not be in 5.1. Did not know that until later last week. But yes, now that we're back in the Blender scene, I'm going to go and make a new scene because I want to just go and try a new little project. So let's see, let's go into here. I'm going to be using GPU displacement and it will be fun. So a while back, a buddy of mine was playing Cyberpunk and there was a cool like digital world scene and where everything was like voxels that like stretched and went down into the scene. You'll know it when I actually make it because it is not difficult to make whatsoever. I want to attempt making it and then I can make it look all nice and pretty. Something like that. I'm just going to go to GeoNodes, new. I'm going to distribute points on faces. Distribute points on faces, instance on points. And then I will realize the instances. So just like this, I'm just going to make a cool little project because I'm just going quickly. Oh, it automatically sets an ID now. I did not know that. Nice. Oh, that is great. Or maybe I just couldn't see it before? I don't remember seeing the IDs for that. That is really, 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 really good. Oh, you love to see it. Okay, so now I'm going to make a plane. I'm not sure if I want to rotate this towards the camera or not, or make it a crisscross pattern. Not sure, I just want it to be as fast as possible. Which you may be wondering, wait, why are you realizing the instances if you want it to be as fast as possible? Well, that's because, realizing instances renders everything faster than if I were not to do that. So here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to change the world to be completely black. I'm going to change the color management to be aces 1.3, even though 2.0 might be a bit better. I probably should just use 2.0, but 1.3, yeah. We'll do emission and transparent, and then we don't need to worry about the displacement. The displacement will just be, let me go and move that over to there. I always use the GeoNode workspace because it is just the best out of the bunch. The shader editor boots up Eevee automatically, which is not good. For speed, and this one also includes the timeline, which the shader editor doesn't, the shader workspace does not. We have this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. And I think for the moment, I'm just going to make this kind of blue, change this to be blended. And since these are all on one level, we don't need to worry about it lagging, I think, because it didn't initiate a ton of draw calls, I think, in order to do that. But the real cool stuff is I'll be using the UV map to drive the displacement based on distance. So if I go and get the object position, object info location, and then get the length, and then add to that length, and then use a map range. Here we go, map range. Here we go, smoother step, vector math multiply, there we go, let's set that to be 10. And I hook that into the displacement, kind of like geometry nodes. We can see that all these parts... Oh, right, because the location is not actually stored there. I need to store the location of the points, just so that there's no weird, like, interpolation. So vector, position, just put that in there, position, come on, buddy. Go, shader editor, go back to the main thing. Hello? Oh, right, the plane. Okay, so we have all that. Let's go and get the attributes, and it does not need to be on the instancer domain because everything is realized. Which if you wanted it so that worked on both levels, you can just go and do instancer or that and then add the two, and it'll add whichever one is currently available. But here, if we take a look at this, we can see but it doesn't look like the way it should. So we can use the UV map to offset the quote-unquote time of the effect. So here we can just use multiply, put that into there. And that is the incorrect one. There we go. So we set that to be 0.5 and then So yep, that's like that. And I just need to... Do I divide before or after? I think before would be better. Set that to be like 5. There we go. So like So we can see that that's pretty fast because it's all GPU displacement without a ton of draw calls. That is pretty cool, pretty good. Now I just need to make it look even better. So we do that, put that over to there. Over to there, put it over to there, bring this over to here. Okay, now let's go and get the UV map and make this actually look good. So we can get the length. Put that through a map range. Let me just Control-V. Oh, you can also copy nodes between Blender instances now in 5.1, which is so great. That's going to make things so much better for everyone. Let's go and use the LG light fall off thing, which has carried my entire career. And I don't know why it works at this point. I don't know why I made it like this, but it just works and I don't question it. And that distance 0.5, just so that we get the middle. And then we just need to multiply U so that, there we go. I just need to add in some bloom, and then we're going to get the coolest looking thing on the planets. And maybe I should add in some general variation. for the stuff, but just look at that. Then I need to make the gradient disappear when it gets to the top, which is pretty easy. I just need to use a map range again, put that into there, and then we just use mix or multiply. I'll just do a mix so that I don't need to worry about it. Go at the top, yes, we can see, even though maybe that should be like 0.5, 0.75, there we go. Then maybe 0.25, there we go, that's better. So, it's like, and I should probably store a random value for each island so that I can add in some randomness. And maybe also make it so that the plane is a crisscross so that it doesn't look weird from other angles. Yeah, there we go. So now it's just a little bit better. So once I get the random data stored on there, and it's all just hashed, so it doesn't need to update automatically. Right here we do that, make it a float, and make this random. Add in a random value right there. We put this there, we move this up to there, we look in the shader editor. We go to the plane again. I should just have the material here as well so that I don't need to look through both. So let's do this just to make this a little bit easier to work through. I find that I'm liking the kind of vertical stack method of organizing nodes. Not entirely sure why, because it can look a little bit messy. Seems to work, so random, we need to subtract 0.5 before we multiply, just to make it so that it's not normalized or goes in the positive and negative directions. Right there, make this another little vertical stack, and then we plug it into there. So one operation per kind of stack. Do that, place that in there, we can put that in there as well, which is very nice. And then for the origin part here, we can just go and collapse some of these nodes and do that, which is nice. Here we can see there's a bit of randomness, and we can make that a lot more or a lot less. So I think 2 is fine. I think that's fine. Let's go in the compositing and add in a little bit. Oh, the compositor tab changed. Where here, it doesn't show there, but shows up there, which actually I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Let's go. I'm actually going to save this. 1 second, everyone, because I forgot to save. File save. I had a crash when I tried to render or do compositing without an actual rendered image, so I'm just being a little cautious. So this will be net shader or something like that. Let's go render one thing. Let's take a look. Okay, so that's like that. So the new compositor editor, which I think looks pretty cool. Let's go back into here, have this in the viewport always, and that is looking pretty cool. Very, very cool. All right, so with that, we can go and change this to whatever color we want. Oh, that's looking quite cool. I can basically do whatever. Oh, also one thing that I was like, I should try adding this to the shader editor because constants I think are allowed now. I actually need to ask about that, but there's no shots making it to 5.1. The scene time node. I really want that in the shader editor. I do not know how to do it, but I really want to try. But there's no shot of that making it into 5.1. I thought I had more time. It's the deadline is this week, or wait, no, next week. Today's Saturday. But yeah, I really 5.2. If I want to get one thing in there, it will be the scene time node, no matter what I have to do. That and the texture socket. Well, Jax is already working on that. Socket. So yep, we have all that. And then I need to add in a little bit of ambient animation for when these are on the ground. So that's just the general displacement. And I could add in another. I'm gonna put this over to here because this is the actual shader. So you can use hashtag frame instead of keyframing or the scene time node. I know about hashtag frame, but as Mod has said right there, Hashtag frame. Everyone uses it because it's the most convenient. But you shouldn't because, well, I'm not going to say you shouldn't. Because it's basically the only good, convenient way of doing it. The attribute methods, like using the attribute node, it doesn't work in cycles sometimes. I've tried where it's like view layer and then you get something something. And sometimes it doesn't update because of dependency graph stuff. Maybe they fixed it, but a scene time node would be the only, it would be the solution. Hashtag frame is the only way people actually do it these days, but it's not the best. Scene time node is very necessary, but it's, the shader editor needs a bit of work before it's implemented. But it's it needs to be in sync with every other editor in Blender now. The compositor has it because it's just easier to implement it there. Notes has had it for years at this point. I think multiple years. Actually, I could check that right now. Just gotta get VS Code up on the side and then I'll be able to see. Windows is lagging. It's not allowing me to search. Windows 11 is being kind of weird. But, long story short, hashtag frame, it's about time we abandoned the weird driver method because it's just slow. Okay, what did I want to do? I wanted to change the lighting here, which, oh, that works very well for a bit of randomness. Pretty cool, pretty nice. And then let me just go and animate this from start to finish. Actually, best way to do it is to just have a value that goes from 0 to 1, and then you map range it after, just so that you don't need to keep changing the actual animated values all the time. I'll switch that to be a subtract node. So the start needs to be something like that, and the end, change this to linear as well. I love the colors in there. And then that has to be like that. So with that, we can see, turn off temporal reprojection. Always turn that off. Always turn that off. Yeah. I know I've been a critic about Eevee Next, but I've started to learn a bit more about it. And if you have denoising off, it's actually not that bad. Like, if you have denoising off, precision 1, thickness set to 2, resolution set to 1 of 1, which is the only way you can actually render things well without having denoising on. And then fast GI approximation, you could keep that on or off, just make sure it's like 0.5, but turning it off can help in some situations. With the shadows, keep the resolution at 0.25 so that it doesn't lag your machine to hell. And then with the shadows, changing this doesn't really affect too much besides, again, the resolution, light threshold, that's all fine. For the render samples, if you don't have ray tracing on, 64 is like the minimum to get an okay result. So basically with Eevee Next, my opinion on it, this is just my opinion, if they fix the denoiser and make it so that it's not a blurred, noisy, muddy result, it would be pretty good. The bounce lighting is quite nice. But yeah. SGI sometimes ruins the render. Yeah. So when in doubt, just disable everything, all of the fast things, because it compromises the quality. The denoising really compromises reflections horrifically, especially if you're using metals. So never have bilateral filter on. Temporal accumulation, try to have that off all the time. Spatial reuse, turn it off if you feel like you can get away with it in your scene. Even though spatial reuse is like the least bad option out of the bunch. Just never, usually don't have these two on if you want a not super blurry result. Yeah. And it doesn't look smooth, it looks muddy because it's just blurring the noise in a weird way. But with that out of the way, and then the shadows are very expensive in Eevee Next. Just keep the resolution at 0.25. It doesn't change the visual result all too much if you're using somewhat soft shadows. So basically, there's a way to make it work. And also for each light in the scene, make sure you turn on jittered shadows because they are more accurate. The default leads to lots of light leaking, though it does hurt the render time by about 35%. So, yeah. To be honest, I was disappointed when the devs revealed ray tracing was going to be screen spaced. They plan on making it so that it will not be screen space, but with how expensive screen space rays are, I think there would need to be a massive speed up before ray tracing would be anywhere close to computationally viable compared to cycles. It's a bit rough on the speed side. Yeah, that's another episode in my critiques of EV Next, because it has been a bit rough in my attempts at using it in personal and professional projects. It's been rough. But anyway, I do like the displacement. Though, keep in mind that displacement only is not an option in EV Next. That's only available in cycles. Even though I wish it was an option. I hope that's implemented one day. One day. Yeah. But that out of the way, let's go and add in some displacement to these points here. Because right now, with this displacement, this is not viable whatsoever for objects that are not emissive, because with displacement and bump, it'll go and make everything look weird if these were solid. If it were displacement only, it wouldn't be a problem, but we just don't have that ability at the moment. Okay, let's go. What was I gonna... Let's just have this here. Or, no, let's make this one dimension to make this as fast as possible. Bring the random into there. I should multiply this by a lot, or maybe even white noise it, but that might not be the best idea. By 10. Then right here, we can go and turn off normalize, and then add that to our displacement right here. Add, plug that into there, plug that into there. I should go and scale the output there. We should use the scene time node. Oh wait, that doesn't exist. Use hashtag frame, because that is the only convenience thing here. I apologize, mod. I do not remember the recommended way of actually doing it using the attribute inputs. But they do not work in cycles because of the dependency graph. It's weird. Let's go and divide this by bits. Go. It's one of those cases where there should be a better option available, but there just isn't because of limitations in the shader editor. Again, just like the texture socket input, where the workaround is using a closure and then a texture and then doing that. Which, it leads to cool results, but having just a texture input, while it's being worked on, it should be a little bit more convenient. So we have that. Let's go and divide that by 200. So here we have all these moving around like little fireflies. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm not sure. I don't think they actually move in the game. Again, I was just watching it on a stream that my friend was doing, so I did not get to see it uncompressed and everything. As we can see, it's not bad. Do we turn the detail down or up? That down's fine, and then that, it just looks like, yeah, I think like that's better, the kind of firefly look. But we can still use random into a color ramp. Oh, I wonder if the closure subtypes will be added in 5.1. I kind of doubt it because I haven't seen any I haven't heard any news on that PR in a while. That would be so good if we got that, but probably 5.2 if not. We have that. So we can just pick the colors. There. And right there. And that's pretty cool. So now I just need to get a somewhat interesting looking cityscape. And again, this is a fairly... Okay, maybe not the simplest setup, but you just get do a bit of vector math, and then you can act like geonodes to a degree. Again, it's super fast because we're offloading all the dynamic computations onto the GPU, which is great. If I were to use the actual position, or no, wait, it's using the random part there. Oh yeah. What else? What else do I want to do? So we have all that, and that goes here. I almost want to make it so that these all extend downwards. Go and take a look at that. So over here, that, there, down, and then doing that. Oh, I'm sensing a bit of lag, even though it shouldn't be lagging too much. Oh yeah, no, it's lagging. Let me go and turn shadows down to 0.25 just in case. There shouldn't be any shadows in the scene. And I feel the lag go away. Funnily enough, if you turn off shadows, I noticed a performance hit. So having it on is better, even if you have it, like, the resolution down to whatever. So I could still do that, but it looks, well, it looks cool. It's kind of looks a bit weird. Uh-oh. It's lagging. It's lagging. Oh no. Oh no, it's not actually lagging. It just zoomed out really far for some reason. Oh, what if I made this green? But yeah. That's pretty cool. Oh, also I need a white noise this so that the colors do not coincide with the small orbs. That's just so that I can randomize the colors very easily. So just like add, plug that into there, and then I can easily randomize all of that. But in this case, having a seed value of basically 0 is okay. So maybe something like that, a nice green and cool blue. I think that's pretty cool. I think that works quite well. We don't have instancing on the GPU, or like just scattering on the GPU, but that would be cool as well. Because these could also be points, because you can't displace points in cycles, but you can in Eevee, which I wish we could displace points in cycles. That would be very, very nice. But alas, we cannot. Last time I checked. That would be such a cool environment to see, like, in VR. Just looking around, it's just like, wow, pretty. Hopefully not too computationally expensive, even though Alpha plus VR does not work well. If I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've tried VR stuff. But yeah, there we go. Just have this, and then it lays out an entire scene. Everything is possible if you have a good enough imagination. And the scene time noted in the shader editor. So I could make these any shape I want. I think it's like, what do I want? Do I want it to just be square or a little bit of that? Could add in a bit of noise just to make it look a bit cooler. But I do kind of like the star shape right there. And also in theory, I could make these face towards the camera. Or actually, can I? Potentially. I could potentially make these face towards the camera, but that would be very annoying to do on the GPU with the shader editor. But I think it's fine. We're at 48 minutes. Okay, so the timing is working out quite well. Because the effect is basically done. I can just go and make it so that, oh, what kind of shape do I want? Do I want a ecosphere with these as well? Because that's possible too. Just like... And boom, you have your scene laid out like that. It's almost like working with Gaussian splats. Just like, oh, you just have points and you can move them around. Like that, and then again, it looks quite cool. Quite cool. Oh, we have 36 people here. 41 people here? It just automatically updated. How about that? Why are you all here? But welcome, welcome. I'm gonna wrap things up pretty quickly. we go. I don't know what else to do. Again, to summarize the effect, it's basically just instancing a little plane on points, realizing the instances, then using the data stored in here to basically do displacement in the shader editor. That's the stuff. So sad I missed the beginning. You can just rewatch it. You could just rewatch it, it'll be fun. That looks cool. Let's at least try. I don't know why, but this is giving my brain like Netflix intro vibes. Maybe it's just because the vertical thing's there. Let them collide and bounce. That would be very difficult to implement. Though, I have my easing functions, which I have not ported to the shader editor yet. But I could go and do something like float curve. Which I could do something like, because this is inverted. Is it? Let's just try this. That, and that. So here, there we go. Here I could make them just bounce when they fall, but unless it were highly randomized, it wouldn't look that great. Well, let's give it a shot. So it's like that, bounce, bounce, bounce. When closure subtypes become a thing, we may get the like easing handles on these, which would be so nice. I want that so bad. And with motion blur, little tip. If you want to do motion blur with alpha blend things, you just need to turn up the substeps. The actual blur will not happen on alpha blend stuff because it only realizes real meshes. So if you have an object moving, why do we have 56 people here? Why are you all showing up? I don't get it. Guess I need to actually make this interesting now. Yeah, let's add in some more shapes just to make this look cooler. Let's add in a donut in the sky because that looks cool. Oh yeah, that looks cool. Let me also get the camera set up. If you have a real mesh or material moving in back of alpha plane stuff, the motion blur will affect the alpha plane. Also, I recently learned during my projects that depth of field does not get motion blurred. It'll do the motion blur first and then the then the depth of field, which can make it look like your motion blur is not applying. So just turn up the steps to like 3 anyway. Let's see. I've been waiting for 5.1. Finally, the video editor and compositor are getting some love. In 5.0, the video editor and compositor got a huge update, which I'm so happy about. This looks so cool. I just feel like it needs a little bit more. Like I need to scale these parts randomly, which I could do because again, this side is only on the CPU. I can add in a random value. This does not recalculate every frame. If the mesh doesn't move, all this is still performance. Very good for performance. Here, I can set that to be that. Do something. That's 0.25. So I can have something like this, and then do. So cool, so cool. Let's see. Did you see Netflix join the Blender Development Fund? I did. And if anyone's concerned about that, you should not be, because the deal is basically Netflix gives Blender money, and that's it. As far as I know, there are no strings attached. Adobe has been even donating to Blender already. Blender is just becoming very important infrastructure for visual effects, or just animation and visual effects in general. So you should not be scared about it. Oh, that. I like that. That's cool. That is cool. Oh, and I could also make it so that the noise is scaled by the thing as well. Oh, it's starting to lag now, though. Maybe I'm overdoing the amount of mesh planes. If we set that to be like 10, we can see Then set that to be 1. It's like that. Okay. And it doesn't look okay. It looks okay, but not the best, if I'm being honest. These would need more subdivisions, which I could try. but I'm a little worried about the speed. We're kind of hitting the, oh my gosh. We're kind of hitting the limit of what's efficient with all this. Actually, the subdivisions aren't doing anything there. I thought it would. Oh, right, because the noise texture is not location-based. If this were location-based, it would look very different. Maybe better, maybe worse. I'm actually not sure. But let's give it a shot. In this case, okay, we can see it looks a little bit different. Maybe I need to adjust the scale so that's a little more like 1. There we go. So here it's a bit more warped, a bit cooler. I think the default is fine. Let's not even scale it. I think it's fine regardless. I think that's everything for today. We are at 55 minutes, so I think I'll go and wrap things up. If you have any last questions about Blender 5.1 or, you know, just Blender stuff in general, ask them now. Oh, and I could also store the normals for all this, which can lead to some cool shader effects. So since the normal is stored when you distribute points on faces, I could go and store that here. Let's just make this norm and plug that into there. Let's go to the shader editor and get that attribute, which is the norm. I'm also looking forward to when we get like string inputs in the shader editor, so that we can go and like have string inputs here. And for especially the UV tangent node, because I have a node group. Nope. Because where's the tangent? Which one is it? Math input tangent, because this one has a UV map input, but you cannot access this from inside a node group. I have a node group that uses this, but yeah, we need the ability to input that from outside. Oh, and I need to show you my data block to string node that I'm working on. That will not be in 5.1, but maybe it'll be in later. So here I can go and get the normals of all this. So if something is pointing up, something like that, I can now harvest that data, which also, if I go and shade smooth, it smooth shades that data as well. That can be used for very interesting effects as well. So if I were to go into the shader editor, and then use the norm to affect the color, I'm just going to put in the dot product there. Go. We can go and make it like that, or conversely, something like that, and we bring the shadows down to something like that, have something like that. And I could also map range this to make it look even cooler. But yeah, basically, I want to keep it dark, but not too dark. But yeah, if you want a representation of a donut or anything like that, you can go and do that. Just getting data, storing it, and then using it in the shader editor. But for now, oh, that looks cool too. So much is possible in... Ooh. That's very cool. So again, just taking a look at this, it's just... All that appears. That would be a cool post, though I need to make the background a little more visually interesting. If I were to go and join the initial geometry to the fold, it will have a different material, so it shouldn't mix with everything else, at least in theory. Do that. Turn this down, and also... Oh, right, there is a light in there. We do that. I can make things look a little bit... Okay. I do like how it collides, like it makes everything not super visible. Oh wait, I can use the... Yeah, let's not do that. But if I go... No, I can't raycast. The raycast node is not in 5.1. Yeah, no, it's not. I can get the vector to the camera and then dot product that with the normal to basically get a Fresnel. But no, I could actually get the Fresnel node and input the normal that I desire. So if I go and use or layer weight node would be a little bit better in this case. So that, plug the normal into there. take a look at this, we can see that we're getting a pseudo, or yeah, just a Fresnel using the normal that we stored. And then we can use that for the layer weight, and then with that as well, see that we're getting, making it look like it has some actual volume to it. But if I did that, I would be able to get the back facing things if I were to subtract with the current position of the camera, which, if I'm being honest, how do I go and do that? I need to get the attributes, need to get the view layer thing, and then I need to get the location of view, which I need the full data path, bring it into here, location, no, not location 1, this should be, there we go, okay, so we can subtract that with the position. Dang, almost 50 people here, I am shocked. But with this, we can get the vector to the camera. We need to normalize this as well, so that the vectors have a length of 1. We do that and that, then we dot product it. With that, we should get a gradient that is facing the camera, almost like the Fresnel. If I did it correctly, which I think I need to invert those two. There we go, yep. We can see that this is facing the camera, so it almost looks like a light is shining there, which it won't actually collide with the objects because it's not an actual raycast. We can't detect when something is actually hitting. Let's see. And then, yeah, so this basically makes it so that we can see a pseudo shadow, even though it, again, will not collide with everything else in the scene. And also, this is kind of how you get, I guess, like a completely linear Fresnel, even though I think if you were to set that to 1, that would be pretty much. But what I want is the negative values so that I can go and play around with that in here. Basically making the parts that are in the back invisible, essentially. So if I were to go and scale the things there, you can see that we are basically getting, we're basically occluding the back faces of all of these, even though, again, it's not 100% accurate, as we can see there. Actually, wait, it shouldn't be show. Oh, because of the, yeah. I shade auto smooth. I shade auto smooth, and then we put this before everything else. Yeah, there we go. Set it to be like 60. It'll include everything that's not like facing the right way. Basically, is back facing. Need you in there. Yep, that is that again. Works pretty well. If we move the camera, everything will work as intended. But I think we need to use a map range instead because I want to go and play around with some of the values. Also, I want to plug you into there because I want to see what a linear fall-off looks like with all that. Yep, that looks exactly as expected. We're over an hour. I need to wrap this up really quickly. I'm still preferring the just golden orange look, like the sunrise orange. 0.25, and then again I can make it so that the back is actually shown but just toned down. Do that and that, we can see, yep, more opposite it goes, the more it looks like that. Right there it looks like that, but it's all too necessary. Maybe 0.25 to negative 0.25 would be good. I think that's acceptable. And then for the actual color, well, I'm just going to disable that because I really like the golden orange. Actually, no, that I'll need to play around with it a little bit. Still like the just if we get the Z-axis. That one does look good. That one does look good, even though I could map range to make it look a little bit different. And right there. Do I do? And then if I do that, we can make this a little more generalized. I can do whatever I want in this world because, again, it's a nice little sandbox. I like playing in the little sandbox instead of having a computer do it for me. I take on AI. Whoop whoop. There we go. Like playing in the digital sandbox. The green looks good. I always need to turn on... I need to make a little script that always sets the pass-per out to be fully opaque, just because I need to see what the viewport actually finally sees. Don't, it's just... ruins everything. Get the wrong expectations of the frame, and then when I render, I'm like, no, it shouldn't look like that. Actually, I like that. Maybe HSV mode. Make it very rainbow. Just like the new Tamagotchi life. Let's see. I'm liking the greens. The greens are looking good. So, I am liking the greens, though. Maybe keeping these going just vertically would be good. Oh, I need to try making them just go horizontal. Oh, that's just the matrix filter. Just the matrix filter. There, it's like, oh, that's... It almost works. But since the other displacement is going vertical, that, or the UV is going vertical, that doesn't mesh all too well. Let's try that way. It does look a bit weird with the tops and bottoms doing that. Yeah, I think vertical is the way to go, or what we had before, where it was just a really trippy, where it was just like stream perspective works well. So yeah, green is an option. Let me go and just put that to the side. Let's go and get the very nice looking oranges there. Looks a little bit too detailed, so I need to find a way of making that look better. Also need to try... Okay. The blues always look good. Okay. And the only other thing I'm going to try for now, this will be the last thing. Let's see. Let me read the chat again. Trying to hear the logic behind GeoNodes, the decision-making process described perfectly in your streams. That's why we're here. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Let's see. But they start to complain and retract funds. I hope the foundation will not bend under the demands. A lot of corpo sabotage with white gloves happening with the open software. I doubt that'll be the case. Especially if they go after Blender, there will be a lot of negative press, and I don't think they would enjoy that. I wonder what their demands would be. I wonder what they would be. As someone who has, well, I cannot say. Never mind. Forget that thought. I have a little bit of insight into the corporate and Blender ties, but not too much, but it has not been bad. Has not been bad. Make that 2 dimensions because we're using the UV map. Not with Netflix. I need to specify that. Just add in a little bit of warbling. Oh yeah, no, that helps a bit. And then I can animate that by going up, down, side to side. Using the scene time. Oh wait, we don't have that. Using the hashtag frame. I'm going to make that into a node group. Because if you copy something with the driver, it does not copy. So basically, having a scene hashtag frame node group, unfortunately, is the way to go. Unfortunately. I need to get that in there somehow. I do not know the shader editor code. I was looking at the texture node, and the old texture node, it is so old. It's from 2005. And 2005. There we go. Yeah, a little bit of wispy stuff looks cool as well, making it look very warbly. I guess, again, my only complaint with this at the moment is that it looks too detailed with everything going on. I need to make it less detailed. Also, I should also... Oh no, the UV map is actually stored automatically because it's a named attribute. So UV map, if I go and take a look at that, we can see, yep, the... Oh wait, no, I need to make the name different because there's a name collision. Here, I'll just make this UV map 1. So that when it's accessed here, it'll go and get the underlying UV map of the mesh. So a lot can be done here. Use depth of field with your camera. That does not work with alpha blend unless I use the jitter depth of field, which will take so many samples to actually implement, but I'll give it a shot. So here we can see that the depth of field does not appear to be working. That's simply because it doesn't actually know where to go. So if I go to depth of field and jitter camera, it will make it so that it works, but I need to turn the blur down to basically 0. So the max size needs to be 0. Then... Hello? Oh, and because of Eevee Next, again, jitter depth of field is not visible in the viewport. It's only visible in the render, unlike with Eevee Legacy, where you could see that in the thing. So if I do that, we can see that it renders in 1.73 seconds. Yeah, which is a little expensive for something with no shadows. It's only alpha blend. Oh, if you turn shadows off, it changes it from... Again, these are shadows where it's hitting nothing. It changes it to 0.15 seconds. No, 0.18 seconds. So again, shadows are the most expensive part of Eevee Next, so keep those as low as you can possibly have them. Again, yeah, keep them as low because they are just extremely expensive, even if they're not hitting anything. Yeah, depth of field, that helps. Yep. Even though it needs quite a few samples, it does help. And I'll just need to home that in because we cannot see it in the viewports. It is so annoying compared to Eevee Legacy. I know I complain about it a lot. I need to stop doing that. But since I still use Blender 4.1 for Eevee Legacy, which is why the comparisons between the two are always on the brain. I do need to apologize for that. I need to stop complaining about that. I need to stop complaining. Yep. I think for now I'll turn it off just so that the two match. Yeah, here we have that going, and then we have the wispy stuff happen. We have 50 viewers still. Dang. Okay. So yeah, this is good enough for today. I'll probably just edit the mesh off stream to make it look a bit better. Maybe like a cityscape or something like that. I do like the wisp effect. Let's try just a few more colors before I go for the day. So again, that looks good. That also looks good. I think the blues have it. The blues always have it. But the purples, though. Look at that AGX color clipping. Ooh, yep. That's why people say that Aces, or AGX is the best. Aces 2.0 causes there to be much less color clipping. AGX makes things very washed out. But apparently it's just more accurate to our eyes. And then I could use the compositor with the... Nope, that's the wrong one. The tune image node. And then do a color boost. Hello? Oh, the color boost did nothing? Oh. I thought that would help. Clarity. And then detail, you know, if you want to make it look super deep fried. Always an option. Okay, but for now, because for this shot it looks better, I'm going with Aces 1.3. And then there's Filmic as well, which doesn't look as good. So Aces 1.3 has become my new best friend. Let's go and Control Z until we're back to there. Filmic is gone. Aces 1.3 is my new best friend. All right. So let's read the chat and then we'll go for the day. How many viewers do you usually have during a live stream? I would say it's around the like 24 amounts. Like maybe 2 years ago, I think it reached like 75 at the max, which was cool. I'm not a YouTuber, I'm not a live streamer. I just do this occasionally to share the knowledge and people enjoy the interactivity. So it's the best medium to share my work. People like seeing the live problem solving that I do. You think there will be some improvements in texture baking? People have requested it in the survey. They know, the devs know about it. But we'll see. I haven't seen any PRs about it. For me personally, like, I don't think too much needs to be changed about it beyond it needs to output the metallic and roughness passes and have like a batch, like every single pass output to a file path. That needs to go. Filmic's gone? No, Filmic is still in there. It's just I prefer the other methods. So with the baking, again, they just need to incorporate some of the stuff that the add-ons have. The add-ons are good. And yeah, it's just that, and GPU acceleration and, you know, all the other stuff. Baking just needs a few tweaks to make it actually usable, because the previous versions are not great. The current baking method is not great. It's quite ancient. Probably over a decade old as well. Maybe like 15 years, I would assume. It's gotten some updates here and there, like under the hood changes, but nothing. I don't think anything user facing, but I would have to check. But I would imagine, well, with the open source development thing, you just need one person to be annoyed enough to learn how it works to update it. That's basically me with geometry nodes and several other developers with just like little bits here and there with Blender. You just need to get someone annoyed enough where they actually start messing with the source code. Assuming that they actually know what they're doing. Because, yeah. Some people just are like, hey, AI, make Blender do this. And then they try to do a PR and it gets shot down. Don't do that. Just don't. Let's see. Another way, instead of the driver and the keyframe, another way instead of the driver to keyframe the value of 1 and another keyframe of 2, and then do the like infinite interpolation. Yeah, but that's very annoying to set up. That takes like probably 30 seconds versus hashtag frame. We just need the scene time node in the shader editor. That's the solution that should exist. All right, thank you for sharing. Best way to learn geonodes for sure. I'm glad. All right, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I think I read everything. But yes, Blender 5.1 is going to be quite good. There are improvements across the board. 5.2 will probably have lists and geometry nodes, which I have plans for as well. But yeah, 5.1 is looking pretty good. Yeah, go have fun with it. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.